interesting and helpful topics that will help you have more health, happiness, and harmony in your life. Join us every Wednesday from 10 to 11 at 99.1 WQEE Rock and Roll Radio.
Are you a night owl looking for something weird, strange, and a little bit out of the ordinary? Hi there, this is Dave Scott, host of Spaced Out Radio. I'd love it if you joined us on WQEE 99.1 FM nightly, where we talk about everything that goes bump in the night. So if you've seen a UFO, Bigfoot in the forest, or your home happens to be haunted, we're the show for you. So tune us in right here on WQEE, where together, my friends, we own the night.
Hey, Noonan, Georgia, it's Hugh Hewitt. Listen to me weeknights right here on 99.1 FM, The Key. Noonan's home for classic rock and more.
99 Rock, The Key.
Around long enough to remember how to roll down the car window? That's classic. Classic hits. WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Southern Fried Books, 29 Jackson Street, Noonan, downtown Noonan's only independent bookstore. And they offer a wide selection of bestsellers and award-winning books with adult, children's, and special interest titles to suit your fancy. Many of Hometwon Novel Nights authors have their books available in the Southern Fried Book Local Authors section. Bringing local authors and local audiences together south of Atlanta. In fact, Thursday, January 16th at 6:30 p.m., the 2020 kickoff event of Hometwon Novel Nights will be hosted by Southern Fried Books at their bookstore location, 29 Jack Street in downtown Noonan. But let's not get ahead of ourselves this morning. We will share more details in just a few minutes. But first, his friends and family know him as Mike. However, he also goes by T.M. Brown, an award-winning local Southern author who proudly calls Coweta County home.
And Happy New Year and welcome to 2020. Gosh, I couldn't remember back when I was a young and wondering I'd ever make it to 2020. But thank you, Ryan, and thank you to all the listeners of WQEE Rock the Key. I'm glad to be here again, and this is the beginning of another great year. And I'm here this morning by myself. I'm my own special guest today, because there's so much to talk about, to launch into what's coming up in 2020 for the Hometwon Novel Nights program. We've got a lot planned. But before I get to some of that news, let me just kind of flash back a second, like I have done. Back in December, we had a great ending to the 2019 year. On December 12th at the Carnegie Library up in the auditorium, we had a great turnout, and we were blessed with the author panel that included Jedwin Smith, who is an award-winning Pulitzer Prize-nominated journalist from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who's now retired. And he's authored several books. His most recent is I Am Israel, From Lions and the Lambs. And the folks just responded to his story and his background and how that book came about. And, it's one of those stories that just got everybody buzzing. Then we had Larissa Reinhart, who's a local author right here from Peachtree City area, who she's put out several books. She's into, it's not books that I necessarily would cling to, but I know my wife has been reading them, because I do refer to them as, and I want to say this carefully, but they're chick mysteries. They're meant for the females that just love to see those strong characters with a little on the humor side, and Larissa does a fabulous job, and I'm so jealous of her talents and her writing ability, because she pumps out novelettes all the time, and then she'll turn around and put out a novel at least once a year, if not more than that. She's very, very gifted, and she had an excellent response while we were there. Yours truly was there, and I kind of, obviously, I enjoy talking about my Southern novels with the Shiloh Mystery Series. My first two books have been having some success, and I'm preparing now for book 3 to come out, and I talked a little bit about that at the event. This year is going to be a busy year for me, and because in May, my third book, Purgatory, A Progeny's Quest, is coming out. And will be released, and I'll be on book tour. My wife and I will probably be hitting the road and going to a lot of book events for the rest of the year, starting just before May. But also, we had another opportunity to be at the Monarch House again for the fourth Sunday Hometown Novel Night Author Book Talk. Holly Mulder and Mike Namath. Mike Namath is from Villa Rica, and he's a multi-Southern author who I've gotten to know as a friend, and he presented himself very well to the senior residents and some of the guests that were there on hand. And Holly Mulder's right here from Noonan area. She's a young adult author. And if you're not familiar with Holly and you got teenagers in your household or preteens even, her book series is spot on. And my wife and I both have already shared some of her books with our granddaughter, and I would highly recommend that as well. I didn't attend, and Angie Gallion, who you've heard on the radio earlier last year, she stepped up and served as the moderator, and she does a wonderful job, and I'm so pleased with all of the support that I have at Hometown Novel Nights. This is not a one-man show. This past year, we've grown like we have, and Scott Ludwig and Angie Gallion have become, as important and vital to what we're doing as myself. So it is not just it's not my show, and I've heard people make that reference. I just happen to be along for the ride and enjoying what we're doing. Looking back on 2019 and a little bit about what's in store coming up ahead, I kind of want to reflect a moment because I think some of the listeners are trying to understand what we do, but we're trying to bring, and the key theme for what got us started is growing and growing. We're trying to introduce local authors, Georgia authors, to the local audience. Because there's a lot of faces and a lot of names that you won't see on the bestsellers list in New York City or on the Wall Street Journal or Publishers Weekly, kind of situations. But there's a lot of outstanding authors right here in our area, and that we have such a literary heritage here. Just within inside of 15, 20 minutes of here with the Erskine Caldwells and the Louis Guizards, and there's so many that are out that have a past here that's influencing what we do as authors here. And we now have a great bookstore in downtown Noonan that's doing a fabulous job of growing and reaching out to the local community, because I think it's something that we've missed since Scott's Books had closed down back in 2009. But I will also kind of summarize this. In 2019, and I know Ryan's sitting here today, and I'm not going to bug him too much today because I know he's got his allergy thing going on. But we had 14 author events at 4 different venues that grew from the beginning of the year. We introduced over 36 new local authors to the audiences that had attended these events, Ryan. And this, I look back at it, kind of shocked me. I did some research too. We had over 250 people that attended the different events that we got started. And we started very humbly at Hogan's in Hogansville at the Rogers Barbecue, who I really want to give a shout out for because they continue to be great supporters for what we do. And we sold over $2,000 worth of books during these events. So as I always joke with the authors, then they ask me about what to expect and whatnot. I say I can't promise you that you'll get rich when you leave the Hometown Novel Night program, but you'll have your gas money and maybe a little bit of food, a little change in your pocket to buy a hamburger on the way home. So it has been growing and growing and growing. So I wanted to kind of share that with you and let everybody understand that. This past year, we didn't start the Carnegie Library program until this summer. You remember that in June?
I remember that.
Yeah, because we had Susan come in and help us. Sue Crutchfield came in and helped us get that promoted. And we've been doing that bi-monthly, and we're already booked all throughout 2020. So starting in February, next month, we'll be back at the Carnegie.
Oh, wow.
And then we'll skip over March, which will be in Hogansville, and then we'll be back at the Carnegie in April. And then every other month, all the way through the end of the year like we were this year. So we're still continuing to do the Hogansville location, and we're also are adding intermittent in between is the Southern Fried Books is going to be hosting several events this year. In fact, January 16th, which is just, 2.5 weeks away.
Yeah, not too far.
Yeah. We're going to be meeting there, and it's going to be what we're calling our 2020 launch kickoff. and it's directed to aspiring writers, published authors, and all book lovers to come on out and listen to Steve McConaughey talk about what are the publishing world's trends for 2020. What's happening in the publishing world? What's happening with bookstores and how, getting access to your favorite books. And he's going to provide us with some great insights, and I know Steve's got his fingers on the pulse of all of that going on. And then I've got a good friend of mine, George Weinstein, who's also a very accomplished author, and he just put out a new book, Watch What You Say, which came out back in November. But he's also the president of the Atlanta Writers Club, and which I've been a member of for about 5 years now, and they've been very helpful along my journey. But George is going to be there and talk about the networking of authors for authors, also what great book festivals, workshops, and conferences that are going on in the upcoming year. And on that note, one of the things that we'll probably address, and I don't know if Steve will do it or George will, but and if he don't, I will, the Carnegie Library Foundation is hosting Noonan Lit Fest in June. Now, I'm waiting for all that to be announced so we can start publicizing that, because we really want to hype that up. But downtown Noonan is going to become a hotbed for about 2 or 3 days in the first weekend in June with publishers and authors and the whole literary festival kind of environment. I guess I don't know if we'll rival the Decatur Book Festival, but we're going to give it our best shot to put our best foot forward. And that's something for all the listeners that are interested in books and what's hot, what's new, and what's coming out, to put that on your calendar for sure. And I really hope that you'll do that. So, looking at that, one of the other things that's been helpful to us is that for the audiences that are coming, what we've been finding out, and which we want to continue to nurture, is in every audience there's always one or two aspiring authors who, when the dust is settled and we're all mingling around after the conversations, either myself or one of the other members on the Hometwon Novel Nights staff, they get approached by somebody and they say, well, how can I get onto this program? What are you doing to help authors like me try to get published and to maybe get in a writer's group? And that's something we're addressing coming up this year. And so y'all stay tuned for what possibilities there are if you're listening just today, or of a maybe struggling but an aspiring writer looking to publish their book, and they need just kind of that critique group or camaraderie of other authors to kind of help them along. I encourage them to come out for the January 16th meeting. And if you are interested, do yourself a favor and do us a favor. Go online to Facebook. On Facebook, if you go to @Hometwon Novel Nights, and you'll look on there, you'll find a link to the January 16th Hometwon Novel Night 2020 kickoff program. And there's a button you can push that says Get Tickets. Now, the tickets are free, but what it does is it reserves you a seat. Because as I was talking with Ryan, and Ryan's been at the Southern Fried Books, there's a lot of room, but there ain't a whole lot of room.
That's true.
We're going to probably be sitting with standing room only. It'll be more crowded than this last summer when we had the event there. And so I really encourage you to do that. Also in 2019, in addition to getting the Carnegie added as a host, what we also had, which made this possible, we started the radio show last summer. And it became as a result of the sponsorship of Southern Fried Books. So I cannot say enough about Southern Fried Books. Not only have they sponsored this monthly radio program to get the word out, they themselves also have been serving as the official bookseller for all of our Noonan events, so that the audience can go and get a book conveniently, pay for it however they want to pay for it, and then go back and greet the authors that are on the panel at the different events and talk with them and get their signatures on their books before they leave. That's really freed up a lot of that conversation, and we really appreciate what Southern Fried Books has done. And I don't want to forget this part of Southern Fried Books and what Steve McConaughey and his whole staff have done. He's also, Southern Fried Books is just a portion of what is called SFK Multimedia LLC. Out of their facility, they have they're a publisher. They do things that are involved in the film industry now. They're producing not only books, but they're also doing and starting to produce audio books in the coming year, which I'm really excited about. They're doing something inside of that Victorian home that is amazing, and my hat's off to Steve McConaughey and how he stands up for all of us authors and all of the book lovers throughout all of Coweta County and Greater Noonan. So, again, January 16th at 6:30, and make sure you're there by 6:30 because we're going to begin, and I know it's going to be a long evening. So after Steve talks and George talks, Angie Gallion and myself and Scott Ludwig, who also is going to be the MC. If everybody remembers, back in December, Scott was the MC, the moderator during the Christmas holiday event. He is a hoot. And I don't throw that term around a whole lot, but he is my Louis Grizzard, ghost that has shown up. His wit is spot on, and I brag about him a lot, and I appreciate him immensely. But he'll be there, and I know he'll be bringing a smile to everybody's face throughout the evening with his commentary and introductions throughout the night. Just kind of right after the January 16th meeting, the next fourth Sunday afternoon Hometown Novel Night event at the Monarch House will be on January 26th. And here's what we've got coming for that. And don't misunderstand this Monarch House location. Yes, it is one of the extraordinary senior assisted living facilities that Coweta County's got. I mean, there are a lot of them, but the Monarch House really shines, and I've got some personal connections to that because of my former mother-in-law, and who passed away there. And and I love giving back there. I read books with their book club there. But when we go there on the fourth Sunday afternoon at 2:00, you could just come in as a guest, sit in with the senior citizens who will just greet you warmly. Their family and their friends will be there as well. We have now positioned ourselves for this event to be in their cozy library upstairs. And there's refreshments and door prizes that'll be there that everybody enjoys. And you'll get to hear this month two authors who are good friends of mine. Martha Boone is from Atlanta. She's a practicing physician that started her career in New Orleans. And her and her husband now live in Atlanta. But she's got a couple of books out that, from her experience, are gripping. And it's award-winning. She's been very successful. I really encourage you to come out and see her. She is sharp as a tack and is so wonderful to listen to. Tim Miller, some of y'all have met before, but Tim's going to be here from Fayetteville talking about his latest book. And he loves getting into those coming-of-age young male mysteries and thrillers, and he's really good at it. And I know a lot of his high school students, because he's a teacher at Fayette High School, follow him and read a lot of his books. And he's been very helpful and encouraging from what he does as well, and supportive of our program. And then our next Noonan Carnegie event is next month. It'll be on February 20th. Again, beginning at 6:30. We're trying to simplify things. Most of our events will be on the third Thursday, beginning sharply at 6:30. Martha Boone will be back with us with the main event at the Carnegie. So if you miss her at the Monarch House, you can see her at the Carnegie event on February 20th. And then Noonan's own Angela McCrae will be there. Angie is not only a great author, but she's also an editor. She writes columns. A lot of the authors in this area look up to her for a lot of counsel and mentoring, for sure. So she's going to be there and very informative. And I've had the joy of meeting her and her husband Alex, and I know that they have a great influence on the writing world and the book world right here in Greater Noonan. And then David Coppage. Now here is a former drug enforcement officer from the federal level who has written stories that, yeah, they're fiction, but I kind of wonder how much is just his life being played back out in fictional terms. But he's going to be on hand, and he's written 2 or 3 great novels that are great thrillers with his background and knowledge. And he comes to us from Sonoya, and he is fun to listen to. And I'm looking forward for him to be back in February. So, put that on your calendar for, February 20th. And again, we try to have tickets sold at all of our events. When I say sold, but they're free tickets. But we encourage you to reserve your tickets just so we can be prepared for the amount of the crowd that's coming, because we try to serve refreshments. And we're also providing door prizes at all of the events as well. So I really would appreciate that. And again, I just want to also ask you to stay in tune to what's coming up in 2020, to the Noonan Lit Fest. I know there's going to be more news coming out, and I expect some more formal announcements at the January 16th meeting. I've already been talking with the folks over at the Carnegie Library, and they're giving me a lot of updated information to share with everybody that'll be coming. Now, something I wanted to look at, and Ryan, if you've got any suggestions, you pop out and you hear them with me, but I wanted to look back on 2019 and look at some notable books that I personally have read that I wanted to mention to the crowd, to the listeners. And there are a couple. Now, granted, some of these, you may know about, some you may not. Number one, the first on my list was River of Secrets, which was the sequel to Roger John's award-winning Wallace Hartman mystery series that is published by St. Martin Press. That, Roger's second book is out, has been out now for about a year, and doing extremely well. His Wallace Hartman series, I know he's busy writing books 3 and 4. Now, this is how smart Roger Johns is and talented. He's a former lawyer. He's writing 2 books at the same time. I can't even figure out how to write one at a time, and he's writing 2 at a time. That's how gifted he is. But Roger's River of Secrets is an extremely fun, not a fun run, but it's a gripping read, page-turning thriller, especially if you like. The Wallace Hartman character is a female detective from Baton Rouge. And she's dealing with different issues that have to deal with the drug trade and organized crime that's with life's on the line throughout most of her book. The second book that I enjoyed the most immensely is I got to meet Christopher Swan. Now, he's one of my former Atlanta Writers Club members that I got to know. And his book, Shadow Alliance, came out just about a year ago. And I saw him at an event over in McDonough earlier in the year. I got his book and I read it. It's a mystery story. It's got a little bit of a thriller aspect to it. But it's about a boarding school. And think about, a captivating, high-dollar boarding school and a teacher in that school getting wrapped up in losing his job over false accusations and realizing that there's something going on there that's underhanded. And so Christopher does a phenomenal job with that story. And he's been published nationally and done extremely well and has been on book tour for the past year. Another book that I'm just finishing right now. Some of y'all might remember, if you happen to have been in Hogansville, and I don't remember if you were there, Ryan, in Hogansville when Ann Timken was there, and she had her book, The Smoking Nun. Just the title will make you stop. Now, Ann's a little older than me, but her story begins back in the late 50s and early 60s when she decides to become a nun. But she came from not a Roman Catholic background. She actually is half Jewish, immigrant parents, and she's got a father who, was not Catholic, but she decided to become a nun. And it's the trials and tribulations that she went through as a nun, struggling with when the Vatican II, now you're too young to know this, Ryan, 1962, the Roman Catholic Church had Vatican, the big council, where they changed the ways that the church wanted to reach out.
Right. And
this story kind of grips you because she ends up leaving her position as a nun, and she actually has a, how do I say this carefully? She ends up with a relationship with a priest. So
scandal.
Yes, it was a scandalous relationship. It's a fantastic read, though. It is a fantastic read from her perspective. It is a true story that she fictionalized some of the names to protect the innocent, as they say.
I'm interested in that now.
Yeah, it is actually extremely good. And my hat's off to Ann Timken. She did a fabulous job, and her editors worked well with her in getting that book to be what it is. Locally, now y'all have heard Angie Gallion around here. Okay, now she's got her series of books, but she just went out on a limb and wrote a standalone thriller called Off the Dark Ledge. She is undoubtedly a very gifted and talented young writer that needs to just get her voice out there. And I'm trying to encourage her to start looking much broader. She's one of those, maybe a little bit more demure than she needs to be. And I'm trying to give her more confidence to get her work out there a lot more. This book is that, who are you when everything you thought you knew is a lie? You know, ask about that. If you woke up one morning and realized everything about you that you knew was a lie. This is the premise behind Off the Dark Edge. My wife hasn't stopped talking about that book. So, yeah, you can do that. As a matter of fact, I know that you can get a copy of her book at the Corner Arts Gallery local book nook. And I don't suspect that you'd have any problem getting the book over at Southern Fried Books if you ask for it. Now, the other book I've already mentioned once this morning already is I Am Israel, Lions and Lambs of the Land by Jedwin Smith. I know that if you go to Southern Fried Books, they will be glad to get you that book. It is a fabulous recount in memoir form of Jedwin's 100 Days in Israel. He used all of his former journalistic contacts going back, and he entered the land prejudiced because he was involved in covering a lot of the most darkest times over in the Middle East back in the 80s. He was in Lebanon during right after the Marine barracks, and he was there with gunfires firing over his head and missiles coming in. So he kind of had, and he was in East Africa during that uprising. So he kind of came in a little bit prejudicial, but he walked out a changed man because he got to see both sides of the land of Israel, from both the Jewish side of it, the Jewish history side of it, but also the Palestinian side of it. And the book is really gripping. I really recommend it. It'll touch your faith in God and how God is the creator of us all. And it doesn't matter who we are in our background. I mentioned already also Watch What You Say by George Weinstein. This is his fifth novel. They're all available over at Southern Fried Books. Watch What You Say has been published by SFK Press. And it is a fabulous thriller mystery that he plays on chromathesia, which is the ability to see colors and shapes by your ears listening to sounds. It's a unique trait that is a real thing, and he introduces it into the story very well. And it makes you really stop to think. So it's not just an ordinary mystery thriller. There's two authors that exit out of Georgia that I want to bring to attention, that I personally have read and really fall in love with. Below the Radar is the third in Dana Ridenour's FBI undercover agent. Her name was Lexi Montgomery is her character. And I know Dana because Dana's a retired undercover FBI agent. She's about five foot nothing. Blonde. She looks like she's 30 years younger than she really is because she's now retired. She still looks like she's 35. And her character is pretty much that. But this is a thriller as well, relying upon her FBI experiences that is fictionalized. They won't let her publish it with all the actual facts and figures. And then the other one is Bryn McLean. And Bryn McLean's from South Carolina as well. She won the Southern Fiction Book of the Year award, and she went to New York City to get her award for this. But One Good Mama Bone probably is the best Southern fiction book that probably will be a classic. I have no doubt about it in my mind. Her foreword was written by Pat Conroy before he passed away. So I would highly recommend One Good Mama Bone. Those are books that I've read. And is there any book, Brian, that you've picked up on that you would want to mention real quick?
Well, I do know that we should mention you have some books out, and we should mention that the last time Christmas, you were a guest instead of a host. So let's mention that book, The Christmas.
Well, the award winner between the two is Sanctuary, A Legacy of Memories. That's the first.
Right.
And that's the one that's had the national recognition. I'm thankful for Publishers Weekly. I've received a couple of religious mystery fiction awards for it. It's an all-audience read. It's not geared to just the Christian market. I actually wrote it for the broad audience, but I wanted it to be an all-audience read. So it's done very well. It's definitely at Southern Fried Books. Southern Fried SFK Press is putting out a new imprint called Hearthstone, and they have contracted all three of my books now. The two that I currently have out, which is Sanctuary. The second sequel is Testament, an Unexpected Return, which continues the saga of Little Town of Shiloh, with Theo Phillips as the main character. He's a publishing executive that retired, and his writing exploits get them involved in some mystery and intrigue in a small town. The third book will be out in May, and it's going to be called Purgatory, A Progeny's Quest. Think about a young teenager who arrives in this little town of Shiloh looking for the last of the family that she's ever known, and only to learn that she feels that she's an orphan because she finds out that she's lost the only family she's ever known now. But in doing so, she discovers family she never knew about. So that's kind of the crux behind that turns into a suspense thriller. One final book that I will tell you that's brand new, that I'm looking forward to, it's on my pile now, is Sean Dietrich. Sean of the South, Sean Dietrich, has written Stars of Alabama, and it's already getting rave reviews. So if you're familiar with Sean Dietrich, I encourage you to get a copy of that. So, you can get, go into Southern Fried Books for any of these books. If they don't have them on the shelf, just ask them by title, and they can arrange to get it for you. Absolutely. If you'd like to know more details, or you have recommendations of some books, you can email me directly at mike@tmbrownauthor.com, and I would be happy to respond to you and help you get any of the books. So in the meantime, all I can tell you is this. Look, I want you to be out. Come visit us at some of our events in the upcoming. In the meantime, if you'd like to know more about our future monthly panels, go to @WGA Hometown Novel Nights on Facebook, or you can go to tmbrownauthor.com, and there's a Hometown Novel Link tab there. And we're also at Hometown Novel Night on Instagram as well. So please join us. Make the reservations at a future event, and I look forward to meeting you and greeting you in the upcoming year. Thank you, Ryan, for having us, and Happy New Year again.
For those who would like to find out more about the future schedule of Hometown Novel Night events, visit Hometown Novel Nights on Facebook or visit Mike's author page at tmbrownauthor.com. And there is a page dedicated to Hometown Novel Nights there as well. You can also visit at Southern Fried Books on Facebook, or better yet, stop in and visit their store at 29 Jackson Street in downtown Newnan. This has been the Hometown Novel Nights radio show, hosted by T.M. Brown. See you next time.
WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, Newnan.